So there's been lots of discussion online from peptide influencer guys saying that things like glow and glow don't work because they've got copper peptides in them. So let's run through real quick. So glow and glow, depending on the version, it has BPC 157, TB 500, GHK copper, and KPV. And the going information online is that because of the copper ions, that as soon as you mix it, it instantly degrades and it clumps up and it doesn't work, and it'll degrade super fast, and you just shouldn't use them because you can't have them all together because they're just terrible. Okay, so there's a couple easy ways of doing this. We can always go through and send these things off to a lab and get them tested, and I've seen people do that online, and that's a great way of doing it. However, the easiest way to look at it is to look at it and say, do people buy a second vial? Because if it didn't work, why would they buy a second vial? I've got a lot of patients who have used them, and then they use them for 2 or 3 weeks, and then they ran out, and they waited a couple of days, pain started coming back, so they got a second vial. So what it shows is that it worked from when they started using it all the way through the 2 or 3 weeks they used the vial, and then when they ran out, a couple of days later, the pain came back. So that shows is that it worked the entire time they had it. The fact that people, like I said, the fact that people buy a second vial and find it beneficial a second time proves that this is kind of silly. The math on it and the chemistry on it show that they're stable. They stay together. It's not a huge issue. They might speed up the degradation process of the blend a little bit faster. But I think at the end of the day, the thing's going to be, most peptides, once they're mixed, even if they're refrigerated, are only going to last, 2.5 to 5 weeks, somewhere in there, depending on the peptide, depending on the mix. You're going to start seeing degradation in that 3-ish to 5-ish week mark. How much depends on that blend, the whole, a couple different things, but that's usually what you're going to see. So if you're looking at, if you took a peptide, a KLOW or a GLOW vial that was mixed 6 weeks ago and left at room temperature, yeah, you're probably going to find some pretty decent degradation. But if you keep it cold, that sort of thing, it should be fine. That's what we're seeing with people. That's what we're seeing with, all the issues. Like, hey, it really helped for, while I took it, ran out, started hurting again, got another vial, pain went away again. So that's what you're saying. So do they work? They do. We've seen lots and lots and lots of benefit from them. Really cool stuff. I really like the way these things work on kids. When we start looking at what are going on with kids, when we start talking about ostrich slaughters, we start talking about, Seaver's issues, we start talking about muscle tears and stuff like that. You've got to put peptides up against, Advil and Tylenol and, oral steroids and things like that, the corticosteroids for anti-inflammatory. You're gonna be like, which one's best for my kids? I'm a peptide fan. I'd rather go with peptides for my kids. So when we start having these issues, we can start using these things to reduce the inflammation and the pain and increase the healing of all sorts of stuff. So, that's how we've been using them, and they've been doing fantastic. So as someone who's in the field using them on themselves, on everything else, they've been working great. Now, I will tell you, if you've got something that, let's say you're taking KLOW and it's helping, you're at a 6 or 7 and, it drops it down to a 2 or 3 and you've done a vial or 2 and it's, it's still problematic. You might want to look at stepping up to stem cells. Look into it. I'm not saying it will work. I'm not saying it won't work. The thing with stem cells, the thing with peptides, same thing. Nothing will heal the body but the power that made the body. Once you're dead, you're done. Like, no peptides or stem cells are going to help you. So you got to keep that in mind. But when you give the body the tools it requires to heal, regenerate, and repair, all of a sudden fun things happen. And the cool thing about both peptides and stem cells is that we're directly affecting physiology. This isn't a pharmacological problem. This is a physiology issue. And so what you're doing with stem cells, for example, is you're giving your body back all of the growth hormones, all of the chemical adjuncts to tell the body how to regrow, how to repair, how to reset. And it's giving you actual, and oftentimes you're giving the body tissue that the body can then direct to change into other things to help to radically increase the healing process. But they're still tools. They're not healing you. Your body is healing you with those tools. So that's one of the things you got to keep in mind, because I've talked to people who went and did stem cells, and they're like, I mean, it helped, but it didn't help that much. And I was like, where was your testosterone levels? Like, well, what do you mean, where are my testosterone levels at? Well, where are your testosterone levels at? Testosterone is the healing hormone. You've got to put all these things, the body works very, very well when it's ready to go. Get your testosterone levels up. If you're trying to heal and you can't heal, where's your testosterone? Primary question. Before you start talking about stem cells or anything else, where's your testosterone levels? Don't care how old you are. Testosterone, don't think of this as like, that's your healing hormone. If it's not where it's supposed to be, get your testosterone levels up. That's the primary. And then what other tools does your body need? Guess what? It's going to require all sorts of things. So if you're talking about muscle damage or muscle tearing or muscle growth or anything like that, Google the nutrients in steak. All the things that are in there, that's the ingredient list for muscle tissue. If you don't have those things, you can't build muscle tissue very well. So when you start looking at what you need to heal, where's your D3? Where's all your minerals? There's a major function in healing. How much water are you drinking? How much sleep are you getting? Where's your testosterone? These are other things we got to factor in. But yes, peptides like KLOW and GLOW are very beneficial at adding back in helpful directions. These peptides direct the body to do things, helpful directions and helpful tools to help your body regenerate and heal. So they're fantastic. If you're getting good results, but if you're sitting on that, like, I don't know, maybe surgery, maybe not, the peptides are helping a little bit, but not all the way, start looking at where you can get some stem cells. There's a lot of guys out doing stem cells you can do. I've had personally, and again, I'm not recommending this necessarily. I'm just telling you what happened with me. I had my shoulder was messed up. I couldn't work out anymore. And I had my wife with a sub-Q needle inject right around my shoulder where it was hurting. And 10 days later, it's so much better. Like, this is like a 3-month-long problem too. And it's one of those things where like, it wasn't stopping me from working out. So I dealt with it. And then as soon as it got bad enough where I couldn't work out, that's when I dealt with it. And that's when I was like, look, last ditch before I do anything else. I was like, because we just had, insulin syringes at the house. I was like, do this one. And she did it. Awesome. So if you guys haven't looked at stem cells, I would definitely look at that if you got these, especially for like slap tears. I would use KLOW and GLOW first. If you're like, that really helps, great. And then like a vial or two in, it comes back. Start looking at stem cells, because I think that'd be your next bet. But the question of, does GLOW and KLOW work because it's got copper ions on it? Yeah, it works just fine. So if you guys are worried about that, don't. It's fantastic. It'll still work. I think there's a lot of problems with social media. Like, you have to be like, oh no, the most crazy thing, or you didn't know this all the time, or else you don't get clicks. So I think that's what's actually going on. It's bad information used for clickbait. What did I say?